Earth had long been a forgotten corner of the galaxy. Its rich resources bled dry by the Galactic Council, and its people kept docile through a delicate balance of economic oppression and subtle threats. The human race was seen as primitive, often overlooked in favor of more technologically advanced species. But the rise of the Xinthari, a brutal insectoid race, would be the spark that ignited the powder keg of rebellion. The Xinthari had been encroaching on Earth's territory for years, gradually laying claim to the mining colonies on Mars and the gas giants of Jupiter and Saturn. Humanity had protested, but the Galactic Council, always favoring their more powerful members, refused to intervene. It was the Council's bureaucratic indifference that finally pushed Earth to the brink. For decades, Earth had been a pawn, but no more. This time, the people of Earth would take matters into their own hands. In the shadows of Earth's government, a small group of military leaders and scientists, many of them former military officers, engineers and exiled dissidents, began working on a plan that would tip the scales in humanity's favor. They called themselves the Resurgence Initiative, and they were determined to put an end to Earth's subjugation, no matter the cost. At the heart of the initiative's efforts was the creation of the Vanguard Cannon, an experimental weapon capable of bypassing the sophisticated energy shields of the Council's warships. Its technology, a fusion of alien and human ingenuity, was not entirely understood by its creators, but it didn't matter. The cannon was their last chance to change the course of history. If it worked, it would be humanity's declaration of independence. President Michael Carter, once a figurehead who had never taken a true stance on Earth's status in the galaxy, found himself at the center of the storm. The Resurgence Initiative needed his approval to move forward, and the decision was one he could not delay. For Carter, the stakes were higher than any political maneuver. Earth's very future hung in the balance. The first trial of the Vanguard Cannon came on a cold, silent night, far from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council. Hidden in orbit around Earth, the enormous weapon was aimed at the Xinthari flagship, a behemoth that had looted Earth's outer colonies for months. The cannon fired. The resulting explosion was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The flagship disintegrated in an instant, leaving a trail of fire and debris across the blackness of space. The shockwaves from the blast reached Earth within seconds, and across the globe, people looked to the skies in awe. The first strike had been delivered. Earth was no longer helpless. The devastation of the Xinthari flagship was a sight humanity would never forget. The Vanguard Cannon had worked far beyond expectations, shattering the flagship in a single decisive blast. Across Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People cheered in the streets, and for the first time in centuries, humanity felt a surge of pride and defiance. But victory, as fleeting as it was, came with a heavy price. The Xinthari, humiliated and enraged, vowed swift retribution. The insectoid species, known for their aggression and ruthless tactics, were not the type to take defeat lightly. Their queen issued a public decree: Earth will pay for this affront. On Earth, President Michael Carter watched the broadcasts of the Xinthari's angry response with a heavy heart. While Earth had struck a powerful blow, Carter knew that the war was far from over. The Vanguard Cannon had destroyed the flagship, but the Xinthari still controlled a formidable fleet, and the Galactic Council, comprised of the galaxy's most powerful and established races, was beginning to stir. The message was clear. Earth had broken the rules, and the Council would not tolerate this kind of rebellion for long. In the halls of power, Earth's leaders faced difficult questions. Should they prepare for an all-out war? Or should they attempt to negotiate, hoping the Council would show mercy? Carter's advisors were split. Some urged him to send an olive branch to the Council, proposing peace talks in exchange for keeping Earth's weapons hidden. But Carter knew that was futile. The Council had already proven they would never see Earth as an equal. Humanity had only been a tool to them. And the moment Earth had something they wanted, the Council would take it by force. No, Carter thought. There would be no retreat. Earth would fight. Meanwhile, the Resurgence Initiative worked feverishly to perfect their new weapon, Spectre. It was more than just a shield. The initiative aimed to build an entire stealth network capable of rendering Earth's ships invisible to enemy radar and sensor systems. They were still years away from perfecting the technology, but with the success of the Vanguard cannon, they had gained something crucial: time. But as Earth began to marshal its resources and prepare for the inevitable retaliation, a new, unexpected player emerged. The Tserax, a telepathic species with vast political influence in the Galactic Council, arrived with an offer of diplomacy. Ambassador Azara, a cold and calculating diplomat, was sent to Earth with a message. The Galactic Council would not tolerate further violence. Earth's rebellion could not go unanswered. The peace talks, however, were a facade. Azara's true mission was clear: to suppress Earth's rise and force humanity back into subjugation. And while she spoke of peace in the darkness, the Council's war fleets were already mobilizing. Earth had made its first strike, but the galaxy was about to answer. The Tserax ambassador, Azara, arrived on Earth with the calm demeanor of a seasoned diplomat, but beneath her controlled exterior was a quiet fury. Her species, telepathic and driven by an unyielding desire for power, had never before been challenged by a lesser race. She delivered her message of peace with an air of superiority, but the undertone was unmistakable. The Galactic Council was watching, and Earth's rebellion would not be tolerated. President Michael Carter, though seasoned by the political intrigue of Earth's own fractured government, found himself grappling with the enormity of the moment. Azara's speech, though diplomatic on the surface, was a veiled ultimatum. The Council, she implied, would consider Earth's resistance a criminal act, an affront to galactic order. If Earth did not comply, they would face annihilation. Carter met her words with unwavering resolve. Earth will not be cowed. We will never again submit to the will of the Council, he declared in front of a live broadcast. The weight of his statement was felt across the world. For some, it was a call to arms. For others, it was a rallying cry, a moment of undeniable truth. Earth would stand on its own terms, or fall fighting. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the Resurgence Initiative was hard at work. The success of the Vanguard cannon had been a victory, but it was not enough. Earth's forces were still woefully underprepared for the retaliation they knew was coming. The initiative's next project, codenamed Spectre, promised to be the game changer. The concept was simple, if not entirely understood: a vast, interconnected network of cloaking technology that could make Earth's warships invisible to the sensors of the Galactic Council. A temporary solution to Earth's vulnerability, Spectre would allow Earth's fleet to strike from the shadows, harrying the enemy before they could react. But perfecting such a technology was no easy feat, and the initiative needed time, precious time that would soon run out. The Council was not content to wait. Word had already spread of Earth's defiance, and the response was swift. The Tserax, along with other influential species within the Council, began to mobilize their fleets, preparing for a full-scale invasion. The Xenthori, humiliated by the loss of their flagship, readied their own forces for revenge. A multi-species coalition was forming, and Earth would be the first target. In the quiet of Earth's research labs, Dr. Robert Stone, one of the lead engineers on the Spectre project, worked tirelessly to complete the prototype. Each day brought new breakthroughs, but it also brought new dangers. As the spectre of war loomed ever closer, Earth's forces made their final preparations. The time for diplomacy was over. Earth was on the brink of war, its forces were ready, but would Spectre be enough to turn the tide against the overwhelming might of the Galactic Council? The first strikes were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. The storm arrived swiftly and without mercy. Early one morning, Earth's orbital defense sensors detected the telltale signs of an incoming fleet, a massive armada approaching from the outer rim of the solar system. The Galactic Council had mobilized, sending a combined force led by the Tsirax, the Xenthari, and the war-hardened Canary. The invasion was not subtle. It was meant to be a statement. Earth's rebellion would be crushed, and humanity would be forced to kneel. In the dark depths of space, the alien ships loomed like vultures circling a wounded prey. They were enormous. Some of the Canary warships were over a mile long, their hulls bristling with energy cannons and armoured plating. The Tsirax brought their telepathic abilities to bear, while the Xenthari's insectoid fleet swarmed with ruthless precision, driven by their queen's unyielding rage. It was a show of power meant to break Earth's spirit before the first shot was even fired. President Michael Carter stood at the helm of the war effort, surrounded by his cabinet, military commanders, and the key scientists behind the Vanguard cannon and Spectre projects. He had made it clear: Earth would not surrender. The weapons they had developed were their only hope. But as the enemy fleet entered the outskirts of the solar system, it was clear that this would be no easy battle. The first move came from Earth's new fleet of warships, modified with Spectre technology. The cloaking system, still in its early phases, was not perfect, but it was enough. Earth's ships, now invisible to the alien radar, launched a surprise strike. Plasma torpedoes tore through the Xenthari's outer defences, and human fighters, unseen until the last moment, struck at the heart of the invading fleet. The Vanguard cannon was fired again, this time at a massive Cunari dreadnought. But even at full power, it only managed to disable the colossal ship's engines, leaving it vulnerable. The battle erupted in space, chaos reigning as Earth's forces clashed with the Council's. With Spectre rendering the bulk of Earth's fleet invisible, the aliens struggled to coordinate their assault. Ship after ship fell, engulfed in flames as human forces made their unrelenting strike. It was the first time in centuries that Earth's people fought not as subjugated slaves, but as empowered warriors. The galaxy, watching from the sidelines, was stunned. But the victory was not without its costs. The Xenthari retaliated with a deadly counterattack, sending waves of ships to overwhelm Earth's fragile defences. The Vanguard cannon was still operational, but it could only fire once every few minutes, and Earth's forces were growing thin. Cities back on Earth were being struck by retaliatory missiles. This war was not just in space anymore. The struggle had come home. In the heart of Earth's military command centre, Carter's voice cut through the chaos. "We will hold," he said, his resolve unbroken. But deep down, he knew the true test was yet to come. The worst was still on the horizon. The Council would not give up so easily. The battle had raged for days, a brutal and unrelenting struggle across the black void of space and within Earth's atmosphere itself. Earth's forces, though bolstered by their newfound technology, were struggling to hold off the overwhelming might of the Galactic Council's armada. Every day brought new losses, both on Earth and in space. The aliens' response to the initial surprise attack was brutal, and humanity found itself fighting not just a war of fleets, but a war of survival. As the Council's forces launched continuous bombardments of Earth's cities, their fleets in space continued to regroup. The Vanguard cannon had proved its worth, but it was a single weapon, and Earth's military could not rely on it alone. The Xynthoi, enraged by their earlier defeat, had deployed new warships, and the Tsirax, with their telepathic abilities, had learned how to detect faint traces of the Spectre technology, making it less effective. Still, Earth held. Humanity's resolve had hardened, and its fighters had become more than just soldiers. They were now symbols of defiance. Each day, Earth's forces launched hit-and-run missions, disabling alien ships in the dark of space. Spectre allowed the fleet to strike first, turning the tide in many skirmishes. But the cost was mounting. Earth's ships were small compared to the massive warships of the Council, and every strike took its toll. In the shadows of this open warfare, a covert and silent war raged behind closed doors. The Resurgence Initiative, working in secret, had already identified a new enemy, a far more insidious one. The Council, realizing that Earth's growing resistance could not be crushed by conventional means, had dispatched a new form of warfare, sabotage. A fleet of covert operatives, made up of the galaxy's most skilled spies and saboteurs, was dispatched to Earth under the guise of peace negotiators and diplomatic envoys. These agents were not here to negotiate. They were here to destroy Earth's technology, disrupt its communications, and sow distrust among its leaders. If the Vanguard cannon and Spectre projects were compromised, Earth's war effort would falter. Captain Jake Harlow, once a mid-ranking officer, was now the head of Earth's counterintelligence division. His mission was clear: uncover the infiltrators before it was too late. The saboteurs were already among Earth's population, planting disinformation, sabotaging weapons labs, and corrupting high-level officials. Each day, Harlow and his team tracked down leads, but with the Council's advanced technology and their ability to blend into human society, it was becoming increasingly difficult to separate friend from foe. As the war raged on, Harlow's operatives began to realize something chilling. It wasn't just the alien ships they had to worry about. There were traitors within. The balance of trust on Earth was slowly beginning to erode. Humanity's survival depended not just on winning battles, but on rooting out the shadow war being waged in the very heart of their civilization. The pressure mounted, and the stakes grew higher. With each passing day, Earth's enemies in space and on the ground grew more determined, and the very future of humanity hung in the balance. Would Earth's warriors remain united, or would the silent war prove to be their undoing? The skies above Earth had become a battlefield, burning streaks of light in the black expanse as Earth's warships clashed with the combined forces of the Galactic Council. The initial victories were fleeting. Despite the brilliance of Spectre technology, Earth's forces were still outnumbered, and the relentless assaults from the Council began to take their toll. The once unstoppable alien fleets were wounded, but not broken. Each engagement was a brutal reminder that Earth was still fighting an uphill battle. On the ground, the situation was no less dire. Alien strikes had reduced major cities to rubble. Survivors huddled in underground bunkers or lived in the shadow of crumbled skyscrapers. The Xynthoi, in particular, had termed their insectoid armies loose on Earth's colonies on Mars and the mining outposts on the moons of Jupiter. The outer colonies, already in a state of revolt, had become the front line in a new phase of the war. But President Carter was not a man to give up. Earth had never known true freedom, never been given a chance to define its own place in the galaxy. Now, in the face of annihilation, humanity had no choice but to press forward. Every day brought new losses, but also new victories. Spectre, still a work in progress, was slowly becoming more reliable. Earth's stealth fighters began to operate with more precision, allowing Earth's fleets to strike deep into Council territory. The Vanguard cannon, though limited in its capacity, was still a symbol of humanity's strength, its power unmatched by any weapon the Council had seen. In space, Captain Jake Harlow's counterintelligence unit made crucial breakthroughs. They had tracked down several agents sent by the Council to sabotage Earth's war effort. A series of covert operations destroyed key alien outposts on the Moon and Mars, and for the first time since the war began, the tide of suspicion began to turn in humanity's favor. But there was a danger in this newfound success, an unraveling thread that could destroy everything. Among Earth's own ranks, there were whispers of betrayal. High-ranking officials within the government had begun acting erratically. Some suggested that these officials were either directly working with the Council or were secretly undermining the war effort. The tension in the government was palpable. Carter, caught between his military commanders and the political factions in his cabinet, struggled to maintain unity. If Earth fractured internally, the war could be lost without a single shot fired. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council's response was predictable. The Tserax, humiliated by Earth's recent victories, initiated a full-scale diplomatic offensive, pushing for peace negotiations, but under terms that would have meant Earth's complete surrender. The Canary, cold and calculating, were biding their time, watching for an opportunity to strike when the time was right. The Council's patience was thinning. But Earth's resolve was stronger than ever. Every colony, every fighter, every soldier stood unified, a new power rising in the galaxy. The question was no longer if Earth could win, but how far the galaxy was willing to go to stop them. The war had expanded beyond Earth's own borders. It was no longer a rebellion. It was a revolution, and it was only just beginning. The war was entering a new phase, and the stakes had never been higher. The Galactic Council, though powerful and vast, was beginning to show cracks. Earth's resilience had taken them by surprise. The combined fleets of the Tserax, Synthari, and Canary had been pushed to the brink. But the Council was nothing if not adaptive, and they had now turned to a darker, more insidious strategy. If brute force could not break Earth's will, they would try a different approach, subversion. In the cold depths of space, away from the prying eyes of Earth's sensors, a secret meeting took place. A coalition of the Council's most influential species, including the Tserax and the Canary, had forged a dark alliance with an unexpected partner, the Aether, a race of shadowy, telepathic beings with a mysterious past. The Aether were known to be the Council's spies, their ability to manipulate minds and infiltrate societies unparalleled. The alliance was not one of simple diplomacy, but one of manipulation, psychological warfare, and shadowy operations. The Aether's offer to the Council was chilling. They could turn Earth's own citizens against each other, sowing chaos and division at the heart of the human resistance. With their telepathic abilities, they could implant thoughts, disrupt key leaders' decision-making, and fuel distrust between Earth's factions. The Aether were skilled in exploiting the fears and weaknesses of those they targeted. They had already begun their work, influencing high-ranking members of Earth's military and government from within, nudging them toward decisions that would fracture humanity's fragile unity. On Earth, the cracks were beginning to show. Despite the victories in space, internal conflict was bubbling to the surface. President Carter found himself battling more than just the Council's fleets. He was now fighting a war of paranoia. Intelligence reports indicated that high-level officers within the military had begun to question the efficacy of Spectre technology, while factions within his own government were calling for a ceasefire with the Council. The idea of peace, however hollow, had begun to gain traction in the halls of power. Captain Jake Harlow, now leading the charge in counterintelligence, uncovered a series of disturbing messages indicating that some of Earth's highest leaders were being influenced by external forces. Harlow, ever vigilant, began to suspect that something deeper was at play, an unseen hand pulling the strings, one that wasn't just about military superiority, but about control of Earth's will. The war had shifted from a battle of armies to a battle for humanity's very soul. Harlow's investigations led him to an unexpected discovery. A covert faction within Earth's military, operating under the guise of diplomacy, had been in contact with the Ether, agents who were manipulating key leaders and, in some cases, directly feeding information to the Council. This faction wasn't just working with the enemy, they had become an extension of the Council's strategy. The gravity of this revelation was staggering. Earth was under siege not only from alien warships, but from traitors in their midst. A dark alliance had formed in the shadows, and the true battle for Earth's survival was just beginning. Would humanity's unity hold under the strain, or would the seeds of division and betrayal rip apart everything they had fought for? Time was running out, and the stakes had never been so high. The war had reached its climax. Earth was surrounded, both by the unrelenting forces of the Galactic Council and the betrayal that festered within its own ranks. The Ether's shadowy influence had taken root deep in the heart of Earth's government, and fissures within the military had widened into dangerous cracks. The once unified resistance was on the brink of collapse, with whispers of surrender creeping through the ranks. The question was no longer if Earth could win, but if Earth could survive long enough to mount a meaningful defense. President Michael Carter, his face drawn with the weight of decisions that had already cost too much, found himself facing a bitter choice. The Council had offered peace, a ceasefire in exchange for Earth's complete submission, disarmament, loss of sovereignty, and a return to the status of a galactic vassal. But Carter knew the price of such peace. It would not be peace at all. It would be extinction. Earth would be consumed, its people nothing more than pawns in a galaxy that saw them as nothing more than a nuisance. But even as Carter and his generals prepared for a final, all-out assault on the Council's fleets, the sabotage continued. Jake Harlow's investigation had unearthed the full scope of the treachery within Earth's own military. A faction of high-ranking officers had been secretly working for the Ether, feeding information to the enemy and actively attempting to undermine Earth's war effort. Harlow's team moved swiftly, arresting those involved, but the damage was done. Earth's leadership was fractured. Even as Harlow hunted down the traitors, he knew the war was no longer just about defeating the Council. It was about saving Earth from itself. In space, Earth's fleet, though battered and outnumbered, launched its final offensive. The remnants of the Vanguard cannon had been patched together, and Spectre technology, still in its infancy, was now Earth's last hope. Every ship in the human fleet had been prepared for this moment. They would strike directly at the heart of the Council's command, an audacious attack that would either end the war or seal humanity's fate. The first wave of fighters, cloaked in invisibility, struck the Council's main fleet, catching the Xinthari and Syrax by surprise. For a brief moment, it seemed as if Earth might turn the tide. The Council's ships faltered, and some began to retreat. But then the Qunari, calculating and ruthless, made their move. Their massive dreadnoughts entered the fray, and the balance shifted once again. The Vanguard cannon fired, but its shot was deflected by a newly deployed alien defense system. But it was not the end. In a last, desperate gambit, Carter authorized the use of Earth's final weapon, the Phoenix Protocol. a last-minute collaboration between Earth's top scientists. The Phoenix Protocol was a high-risk, one-time use device that would overload the Spectre system, flooding the battlefield with a blinding pulse of energy that would render all cloaked ships visible. But more importantly, it would disrupt the Council's communications network. For the first time, Earth would fight with full transparency, no shadows, no secrets. The protocol activated, and space erupted in a blinding flash of light. Earth's forces, no longer hidden, were vulnerable, but so were the Council's. The ensuing chaos was a whirlwind of ships, weapons fire, and explosions. In the heart of the conflict, Carter watched as his fleet, emboldened by the revelation of the truth, pushed forward with newfound determination. It was the final stand. Earth's forces, exhausted but unyielding, struck the heart of the Canary fleet, breaking through their lines. As the last remnants of the Council's armada crumbled, Earth's fighters flew on, against the odds, against the entire galaxy. In the end, Earth had not just survived the war. It had shattered the chains of oppression that had bound it for centuries. The Galactic Council, reeling from the defeat, withdrew to lick its wounds, but the damage was done. Earth had proven its worth, not through brute force alone, but through unity, resilience, and a relentless will to be free. And as Carter stood in the ruins of what was once Earth's war room, he knew one truth above all. Humanity had finally earned its place in the galaxy, not as a conquered species, but as one that would no longer bow to anyone. The age of Earth's subjugation was over. The age of humanity's reckoning had begun.